curious to get your opinion on this. As a Leafs fan, did it feel better or worse that Florida won the Stanley Cup, Anna?
Um, I think it made games 1 and 2 of the Leafs series against Florida look a lot better. I know a lot of folks hate this narrative, and rightfully so, because at the end of the day, a win is a win, a loss is a loss. But in hindsight, when you look at a team, and especially when you're heading into the offseason and in Toronto, there were so many questions about the direction in which this team was going to head. Seeing how the rest of the playoffs played out and seeing what the Leafs were able to do against the team that eventually won the Stanley Cup, I think it changes the direction in which the thought process is existing in the offseason. It's not so much of a you got to tear everything down and completely change this team's identity. There's a couple of pieces that maybe could have helped them get over the bump there, but they have a good squad and there's no reason to sound alarms. So I would say that at least for Leafs Nation, I hope it helps them calm those alarm bells that were absolutely ringing after their series against Florida.
Yeah, we were talking about the same thing. Like everyone thought it was Edmonton's year, and they didn't even put up the fight that I think Toronto does. And does that make you question the Marner thing a little bit more, or does that make you think we're close and just got to tweak it a little bit, or what's your mindset here going into the offseason?
I mean, in the preseason, I actually had the Leafs winning the Stanley Cup. I had them making the Stanley Cup final with Dallas, and we saw how that ended up for both of those teams. But I said it for a reason, and then obviously being around this team the entire season, I think there's a great group. I think it is a very competitive group. They won the Atlantic Division for a reason. They are talented, and I think the system they're playing in is perfect for this team. I think Craig Berube, I've been singing his praises all year long, but rightfully so. I think the way he coaches is perfect for a lot of players on this team, and it's just his first year. I'm really excited to see what happens in year 2 because it takes time for the entire system and identity of a team to change. But the Maple Leafs that I saw this season is a Maple Leafs team I have never seen before as a fan. Granted, I've never covered them, but seeing what I saw this year, they played with a physical identity. They played all 4 lines, and they weren't afraid to expect production for all 4 lines and impact from all 4 lines. And the goaltending tandem is the best I've felt about their goaltending tandem pretty much my entire lifetime, at least. So I think there's a lot of positives to take away from this season. Yes, they didn't achieve what they set out to, but there's a lot to look forward to. And I think the future is bright for this group, specifically with the direction that they're heading in.
Really feels like they're closer, right? Like, frankly, I feel like I've been cheated the last decade.
Oh, wow,
where you
Nick.
bring in Craig. Well, I don't know. Like, I watched the team in the playoffs, and like Craig Berube comes in, plays 1 year, and he coaches 1 year, and all of a sudden they win 7 games, almost make it to the conference final. They couldn't even sniff the second round pretty much under Sheldon Keefe. Like, it just, especially when you see the blue lines, the way they stack up, as you get later and later on in the postseason. And I really felt like the Maple Leafs were actually in the conversation for once. I know every year in Leafs Nation, we believe and have that passion, but this year it actually felt like they're a pretty damn good team, no?
They were. I mean, games 1 and 2 against Florida, it looked pretty good for this team, even against the Florida Panthers. I think the biggest difference I would say too is in that Ottawa series when they got off to that super hot start and then all of a sudden they start faltering. They still came back, they won, and they closed that series out. Even in Florida, yes, games 5 and game 7 were not good games for this group, but then you see what they were able to do in game 6 to force it to game 7. That is a form of resilience, I would say, I haven't really seen from this roster before, and it's just something that I feel like Craig Berube has instilled in his team. I think Brad Treliving has done a phenomenal job as well with the pieces that he brought in. Chris Tanev, Anthony Stolarz has made a world of a difference to this Leafs team as well, so don't want to give all the credit to Craig Berube. I think it was an entire team effort, but I'm around this guy every single day, and I would run through a wall for him, so it makes sense that all of the players would run through a wall for him. He's just a phenomenal coach for sure.
Yeah, and as we look forward to this season and Craig Berube can really get his claws into the team, where are your eyes at as far as the free agents that are coming up? Who do you think is a good fit? Do you have someone that you're more hopeful to grab other than the other ones that are available? Who stands out for you?
We got to go with like the big shiny ones right now that just won the Stanley Cup, right? I feel like Brad
Yeah.
Marchand and Sam Bennett, we don't know if that's going to end up happening, but I think that's at the top of every Leafs fan's wish list, is seeing one of those two guys, because you see the impact that Brad Marchand had starting with his series against Toronto and what he was able to do. And obviously Sam Bennett at Four Nations was when I was like, this guy, we've known he's kind of the real deal, but the way he's grown as a player in this league and what he's been able to accomplish, I don't think anyone kind of saw this coming. So those two at the top of every Leafs fans list. The likelihood of that happening, I don't know if it's going to happen, but there's also a couple other guys, right? Like Matt Duchene's now staying in Dallas, so he's kind of off of that, but Ehlers is still out there. Brock Besser might be an interesting kind of fit there in Toronto, so there's a couple of pieces that they could add to just add a little bit of depth. But if anyone's expecting like a blockbuster move for Toronto, I just don't really think they need it. I actually don't think they need it. I would like to see JT come back to this team. I think that his season is kind of underrated, and now he's getting a little bit of like a scapegoat role with the way everything ended, because people have so much recency bias. But the way he played and the impact he has on the younger guys in the locker room too, it's not just about like what we see on the score sheet or what we see during games. There's a lot of key players on this team that like having JT around, Matt Nyes being at the top of that list. So having a veteran in the locker room that your core players, the future of the franchise, trust is important. So I'd like to see him come back and maybe add a piece like Ehlers or Besser if you don't get one of the Marchands or the Sam Bennetts.
All I could say, and I hope you cleared your schedule, because sounds like Mitch Marner might wait till middle of July. Fuck, why not just wait till September at this point? And we'll cover this on a daily basis. But seriously speaking, like what's been your take on, covering Marner, the whole situation, and now the ultimate reality that he has played his last game as a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a big storyline the entire season. He's a Toronto kid. I think that's the big thing, right? Getting the opportunity to play for his hometown team, and he hit milestones this season. He still had a very good regular season, and it just ended up not panning out the way everyone kind of wanted it to pan out to. I like being around Mitch. I like talking to Mitch. I wish him the best of luck if he goes elsewhere. Toronto's not entirely out of the conversation, so there's a chance that he might come back, but I think he's a very good player. I think he is a star player in this league. And sometimes we saw what happened with what we're seeing right now in Florida with the Jonathan Huberdeau, Matthew Tkachuk trade, and how that was one of the biggest trades that we had seen, and the way it panned out for the guys who went over to Florida. Sometimes all it takes is a change of scenery for a player to find their place. So whatever happens with him, whether he stays in Toronto, whether he heads elsewhere, I liked covering him. I liked watching him. I think he's a great player and a great guy. So I hope it works out for him. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, and you've been around the league and been around different teams and covered it for a while now, and now you focus your attention more so than you have in the past with the Toronto Maple Leafs. You're in the room talking to the guys, as you mentioned. Do you feel like the spotlight and the pressure, and do you kind of get a sense of that as you're around the Maple Leafs more?
Oh, absolutely. I remember my first game I did for the Leafs was a preseason game against LA, and there was more media in the preseason game against LA than I had seen like in any like deep run playoff game when I was down in the States. It was crazy. So I immediately was like, oh, I'm back in Toronto. This makes sense that there is a lot of pressure here. There's a lot of spotlight here, but it's also because people care. Like Joe Wool, I think at the end of the year said the best thing about it. He goes like, you want that because that means that people care, and people in the city care, the media care, the fan base cares. So many guys in the league are from here. I know Willie Nylander said like kids grow up wanting to play like teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's exactly what it is. There's a reason why everyone wants to be on this franchise and why this franchise has so much spotlight, because it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. And even covering it, I'm like, oh, this is the big leagues. It's definitely big time, but the pressure does exist. I know like we're seeing the Florida series and everything the way it panned out, but what they were able to do in the regular season, like this team, oh my God, they barely lost games in a row. Like they went on some pretty massive win streaks. They had some pretty dominant performances. And I think a lot of the folks on this squad really lived up to the pressure, at least during the regular season. I know Leafs fans are tired of hearing about it. During the first round too, against Ottawa, and at the start of the Florida series too, this team really lived up to the expectations that they had, and it just didn't end up working out. If all of the past experiences that Toronto has like gone through did not exist, and this season stood alone as a standalone season, I don't think Leafs fans would be disappointed. It's just the buildup of the trauma and the addition and how long everyone's been waiting that this just feels like such a big blow because they were so close to finally getting over that hump, advancing, and that team ended up winning the Stanley Cup. But if you remove all of the past instances and everything the team has gone through and you look at the season as a standalone, I think a lot of players came to their own and lived up to the pressure. I was really impressed with Matthew Nyes. He's still so young, and it seems like he is the perfect player for Toronto, and he loves playing in this market. What William Nylander became under Craig Berube is a William Nylander I've never seen before, and he actually is the perfect player for this market. Like, I cannot craft a better player to play in Toronto. So there's a lot of guys who really do like the spotlight, and isn't that what you want to do when you make the NHL, is to play in a market like this where people like live and breathe hockey?
Yeah, I mean, it's simply tremendous. And certainly on the Nylander front, you're so right. Like, nothing phases the guy. And I think he's just a prime example of a guy who can deal with the media scrutiny and the noise. It just doesn't bother him whatsoever. And along
I would
those
like
lines, I was going to ask, yeah,
like
go
one
ahead.
day. I would like,
Pardon
I
me?
just want to know what that level of peace feels like to like experience what goes through William Nylander's mind just for one day. It would be great.
Well, you even see it like when he comes out in his scrums, like no shirt, just chilling. Who knows what he's up to after the game? Like I love that mentality, and that's why I think it's translating to the game on the ice. And I think we can all take away from the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yeah, they need more from the big boys, but the most noticeable big boy, without a shadow of a doubt, was Willie Nylander. And I was going to ask you, like, who's the most fascinating guy you covered on the team this year on a daily basis? Where you're like, shit, I don't know what the guy's going to say, but this will be a lot of fun, my day.
Probably William. I think he is such a unique player in this sport. I would say I've never met a guy that's quite like him for all of the reasons that you said. He's so talented. He really is very, very talented as a hockey player, and I think everyone knows the skill set that he has. But this year he showcased it's not. He's able to do things that I don't think anyone is able to do. Like, there's situations he gets in where you think no one else could get out of this and make a play or score a goal, and William Nylander somehow manages to do it. Like, his hockey IQ is through the roof, but off the ice, he's a very interesting guy. Like, even during the offseason, who knows where he is? He went to Sweden, he came back to Toronto. He's like playing tennis with fans in Toronto. So he's just a very interesting guy. And I think that being around him, it just, you never know what you're going to get out of him. But there's a lot of great characters on this team, to be honest. I think everyone's going to say that I'm a homer and I'm biased, but I've been in a lot of different locker rooms. This is my favorite locker room I've gotten to cover. The guys really care about each other. They're all really great guys, to be honest. And it's very clear that they love what they do. They love playing here. And even beyond just being hockey players, they're all just like gems. I swear. It's so much fun getting to talk to all of them because you never know what you're going to get. And Willie's at the top of the list, but there's a lot of fun quotes I got throughout the year.
Yeah, that's good to hear. You mentioned it might be hard to land one of the big fish in free agency. You also mentioned, how highly you speak of the goaltending duo. And people are talking about Tree Living might have to go outside of the box and invent some trades and do some things the unconventional way this time of year. What are some trade pieces you think we have? It's pretty meager as far as the draft picks go. Is Joe Woll off the table as far as a trade piece? Do you love the duo that it is? And do you think he's kind of untouchable, or do you think he's something that maybe they'd have to explore if they're going the trade route?
I don't think he's untouchable, but I think he's almost there. And I think that's just because the tandem that they crafted this year, and honestly, Joe held his own during a couple of those games against the Florida series. He came into a very tough role during the playoffs we also have to remember that, right? Like, we take a look at everything that happened, but Anthony Stolarz was not only a rock for this team during the postseason, he was out of his mind during the last stretch of the regular season. He was playing unreal hockey, and then you see someone who has been such a strong point for your team get kind of taken out of the mix. All of a sudden, you're getting thrown into the playoffs against a very difficult team. And I think it took a second for Joe to find his bearings, but then towards the end of that series, you really couldn't fault him for the way it ended. I think he had some really good performances. I think there were a couple of those games where he did his best to help his team kind of stay in the mix. And he's also still young, and I don't think we've seen the full potential that Joe Woll could be. He's had some injury issues himself, and I really do like this tandem. I know the worst thing to say based off of everything that's happened, is to like run it back and that we don't need some major trade. But I think based off of the team that we saw this year and what they were able to do and what the Florida Panthers ended up doing and how close they were, not in the sense of the fact that they could have won the series if they had won one game, but just if you look at their competitiveness throughout the entire year and every game other than game 5 and game 7 against Florida, this was a very, very good team. And I wouldn't do anything drastic given what they were able to do this year. I think there's a couple of pieces that could help them get over the hump. Their fourth line in the first round series against Ottawa was stellar. They would go out there and they would have energy night after night, and that was massive for them. And I know that Craig Berube highlighted what their bottom 6 was able to do in that series, and we kind of saw that. And in the series against Florida, that was something towards the end of the series that I feel like was really missing. And of course you want the big guys to show up, Dawson Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylanders. But I think the energy that their bottom 6 brought in round 1 that was kind of absent towards the end of round 2, that's an area no one's really like focusing on, but adding some depth down there and having that consistency of being able to run 4 solid lines, I think that would have been enough to make a difference. Maybe their blue line being a little bit stronger would have been enough to make a difference. Their goalies, though, I really can't fault for what happened.
Well, Anna, I admire your belief. I remember years ago, Arash Madani covering the John Tavares sweepstakes. You have plans to be covering Mitch Marner and his whereabouts as maybe mid-July, mid-August. Maybe he signs in November for all we know.
Yeah, of course. I always tell my friends, they ask me to hang out, and I'm like, go on NHL.com/Toronto Maple Leafs /schedule and look at where they are, because that is where I will be. So, yes, I will be covering that. Whatever they're doing, that is where I will be.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for doing this today. We'll talk soon, okay?
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.